Today on 5 Minute Tones, we're going to have a look at the mighty Solo 100 lead model in the Axe FX3 based around a Soldano SLO 100, one of the most mythical high-gain amps of all time. I'm really lucky to own a Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus head, which essentially is like an SLO 100 Lite. It's 50 watts and it's only got 2 channels, but the SLO itself and the SLO model residing in the Axe FX3 is a bit of a different beast, and the thing that really makes or breaks this model is where you set the master volume. So what I want to demonstrate here is I've got 2 channels set up on my amp. I have the exact same settings between both of them, except the master volume is at 3 on channel A and the master volume is going to be at 7 on channel B. I have used the level control to compensate for the change in output. The IR I'm using is this LT TV Mix 2 IR that I made based around my greenback cab. This is my PRS SC245, which is totally stock. Let's start with channel A and we'll just have a listen to the difference between low master volume and high master volume on this amp. It's almost like playing 2 different amps. Markedly different there. You can hear that while the amp is a lot tighter with the master volume low, it's also considerably brighter, and there's a couple of these kind of ice pick frequencies in there when combined with this particular IR. But with the master volume cranked up, it does all those things that tube amp enthusiasts love to wax lyrical about. It compresses, it gives you more power amp distortion, it sort of changes the character, and it just feels so much better to play. Furthermore, you get that really nice interaction between your playing articulation and the amp itself. Like, you play really soft, now, sure, you do lose some of that tightness in the low end. So personally, I really like this particular amp set up the way it is with a master volume high. Then what I would do is I would go into the input boost section and I would chuck on, well, I've got the CC boost at the moment. Let's have a listen to that. That's one of those sounds that you have to take a deep breath after you've played it because it feels so good. The grinder boost is really cool with this one as well. And that, keep in mind, is with the input drive at around 2. That's almost too much gain for what I would like. So if you're going for that classic Soldano thing, I would keep the input drive low, crank the master volume, and then, you know, you can chuck a boost in front of it or something like that. You can really push the mids here as well. And because it's quite a bright amp, I would probably bring the treble down a bit if I was going to do lead stuff. Maybe add a bit of bass in there. So let's have a listen to these settings now. It's just such an articulate amp. It has this real throaty mid-range roar about it, but you know, you play a really complex chord and you can hear all the notes in it. And as some of you may know, Mesa infamously ripped off wholesale the preamp section of the SLO. So if you take what I would consider like your typical recto settings, where you pull the bass and the mid-range down, you keep the master volume low, I'd probably go even lower than 3, and push the treble a little bit, and again, like we'll add a front-end boost, let's go with like a tube screamer or something like that, and crank the boost level, you get a really fresh take on like a rectifier style. Other amp which is part of the shares the SLO DNA as well is the PV5150. So if you're like me, a recto player, and you want a different vibe on that, the Solo 100 lead is great to try as well. If you're a 5150 fan, this is a great one to try as well. And again, finding that sweet spot with the master volume for what you want is really, really important. The presence control is probably the last control I haven't looked at, but you want to tailor this to the IR you're using. There are some Soldano cabs in here which are quite dark sounding. If you search Solo on the cab, there are these legacy IRs. I think they're Red Wires IRs. And if you have a listen to them, they're really, really dark in comparison to the IR that I'm using. And if we go back over to the high master volume mode, I would compensate for that by cranking the presence control. IR there is so dark, it's going to sound a bit smoother. And to really go full Soldano on this, I would add a multi-delay block. I've got in my blocks library this circular delay preset. Let's just go with this, and this should give me kind of like a Lukather style thing. Not that I can play like Steve Lukather, but... So that is a really, really fun delay block, well, multi-delay block going on there. So that is how I would use a Solo 100 lead, either as a cool alternative to a high gain thing like a 5150 or a rectifier, or I would crank the master volume. And it's really got its own voice against all these other amps. It kind of, it just sounds like a Soldano. Like, you can't say that it's a distinctly, Mesa, Marshall, PV, whatever it is. It really does have its own space. This is also an awesome amp if you are recording high gain guitars and you want a great character to your lead guitar sound, or you want another amp to layer with your main amp just for some character, because it's really got it going on. So that is what I would do with the Solo 100 lead. This wasn't a 5-minute tones video. This is like a 9-minute tones video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.